what are some actual, I mean, obviously Jordan just listed a couple of different use cases. What are some other use cases today, not, not Star Trek, which I love the references, but what's today? Like, what are some true use cases that are beyond the basic, triple play kind of view that now can really benefit, are in place today for communities to make things a little bit better for them?
I think something interesting is what we've just heard is the providers on this call are talking about those use cases that are like an emotional tie, right? Within our companies, every one of us has a story about how we saved a post office from having to shut down because we got on broadband, or how we're helping a farmer calve. We all need those to drive us. And so for every company, it's a little different, right? There's companies from Maine here, from Kansas, from North Dakota. Every company has these own internal stories that keep their staff moving and that are ties to the community. Every community is different, right? And rural America has a total different use than on the edge of an urban market. So I think there are a lot of uses, but if I were to summarize what I've heard so far, it's these are stories we use internally to like propel our staff to the next big thing, right?
What do you
and I mean, I would agree, and I mean, the only thing I disagree with so far is I think somebody complained about the GD polls, and those polls have made me a lot of money. So I like those polls, even if they're old. But I think what Brian said and what Jordan said is right. I mean, those anecdotal stories are very motivational and powerful, but I really don't think that they're very significant value add long term. And I think that they're a little distractive, and they are powerful in providing solutions, and we need to do that. But if we look a little further into what we really need to do, and probably why our market is predicted to be $800 billion, is that we're going to get beyond, the duct tape and baling wire that we're all doing right now to get service to people that need it now, and pull up our bootstraps and get fiber to all these places. And yeah, I'm a pretty big fiber snob.
All right, drink.
Okay, is that the ritual here? This is my first day. But Brian and I have a bit kind of that we do at FISFA, which is a small consortium of competitive providers. It's called Fiber versus Wireless, and so I'm known as the wireless basher in some circles, and you'll find that interesting if we have time to talk about some of the stories that have gone on in our company in the last 6 months. But the point about monetizing and where the quality revenue is from a long-term perspective, and the idea that this is going to be an $8 billion market, I think there's going to be revenue everywhere, like everywhere. And I think a large portion of it is going to be related to our network support of next generation mobility. And, mobility today, you think of that in the terms of, this cell phone that can do, 10 to 100 megs of service, but it's really not keeping up with, the demands that we see in the fixed wireless or the fixed internet space, and the development there. And you still can't quite do everything on this from a bandwidth perspective. And to get there, everybody knows you need a very fiber rich environment. And so, if we're speaking in terms of, providers, it sounds like a lot of us are in rural parts of the United States, and we likely dominate the fiber infrastructure, we're going to be well positioned to monetize our network with all of the uses of mobility. And I don't really even see, everybody's worried about Elon Musk and his ambitions. I believe he's going to do what he says he's going to do, and he's going to do well. But I think we're going to need all of that. Like, I think what we're doing is we're continuing to open the gates wider, and every time we do that, it gets filled with more and more applications that need that information, that pipe, and I don't think we've really seen the limits of development and where we're headed. And this is, Google was brilliant, 10 years ago when they created this, 1 gig kind of standard for the market, and it created this market disruption and this competitive response to a need that didn't exist at the time. But they knew they're going to create the need, and they're the ones that fill the pipe, right? That's what they want. They don't want to be the provider. They want to sell the stuff that goes in the pipe.
Yeah, but I think, Daniel, I would say, and it's interesting. You're talking about things of monetizing it, but I guess, do you think, and this is to everybody, like part of adoption and part of, even look at Google, like it's creating things that have some emotional connection, right? At the end of the day, the things that Brian mentioned, Jordan mentioned, who mentioned that, and everything has to me, I guess I don't see it as a distraction. Like, I see the things that these applications are things that actually create a monetization that is beyond sticky, right? Like, that's a stickiness that's hard to break free. And as a service provider, right? Like, isn't that what you guys want? Like, isn't that what the opportunity is to lock in, not only being able to support a community, but to be able to have something that's like, I'm not going to get rid of that.
Well, I think my point is, and I'm not discounting the value, and I think providers should be doing that. My point is, the next 3 years are going to be another land grab, and if you're not focused on highly efficient deployment, and you're going to lose out. And so it's certainly not a bad thing, and I'm certainly not discouraging providers from doing the one-offs and helping the local guy. But answering the question of the topic of the day that you put out, which was monetizing, I think from a long-term perspective, if we look at what the opportunities are in the next 3 years, we have to be very focused as providers in order to get the most opportunity out of what's in front of us.
Well, one way to take a look at it is, in Maine, we're providing a choice that they've never had. So if you're looking at a multiplier force, that market at 800 billion is predicated on a certain number of choices available. Those choices are going to explode by the consumer. They've never had a choice. They've been at the behest of an incumbent or a monopoly for the last 20, 30 some odd years. And now this whole ecosystem is providing them the opportunity to say, well, actually, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to choose which one I want. So, and I think that is going to have its own velocity. That is going to determine its own trajectory, because the consumer for the first time is going to feel empowered with the power that they carry in this marketplace. There's a reason why in the past, the telecommunications sector is the second most hated, sector by the consumer. There's a reason for that, because we pillaged. Well, let's be frank, we pillaged, right? So now we're resetting that. Well, in that resetting, I think Daniel's correct. It's a land grab, but it's going to change that picture for this industry and the consumer, because they are just realizing how much they are now in the driving seat. Whether it's them building their networks and sourcing it out to operators, or ISPs doing it in partnership with them, or them doing it themselves, This is a major tectonic shift. This is like, those old days when we thought we only had to go on, a Constellation Air because we need to travel from New York to San Francisco. And now we can pick whichever flight we choose post-pandemic. I think this is going to be like that. There's an enormous amount of multiplier that's in there because of that choice, especially in these.
I think you're Param and Daniel. I mean, I totally get where you guys are coming from, and maybe to give you a little bit of background on where Nick and I are coming from. We come from working for an old incumbent, and I had to dig this up. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but it says Bell South Business System.
Oh boy.
And then the top of this is Sun Microsystems.
Ooh.
So we used to have a lot of fun, and Nick and I helped host a Bell South Classic in Atlanta well over 20 years ago. And then it was all about trying to eke out one more dollar because, at the time people could easily, come and rent our pairs and deliver the same type of service. So it was so hard to differentiate ourselves. But you're right. This is a complete new world. And what's so exciting when I was looking at some of the stats, when you look back at copper networks, they had probably 6-7 carriers dominate more than 80% of the entire US market. And now when you look at fiber deployments, over 25% of the deployments are coming from small carriers. To me, that is so exciting, right? Not only for this panelist group, as well as us working for small carriers, because we're empowering the community now, right? You're right. What's ahead of us is like so incredibly different. We're not even sure how to grab it. I totally get where Daniel's coming from, because it's like, okay, we definitely want to do some cool things along the way, but right now is the time to connect as many people as possible, because if we get there first, we win the race, right? And then we can work on all kinds of super cool, amazing stuff that may be something that we provide as a service provider entity, or that we're just simply enabling, right? That's the beauty of what you guys are creating today. We don't have to enable all of it. We just have to get the connection there, right? And they're going to be willing to pay for it. So it's definitely a different time for sure from our days 20 years ago, Nick.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, for the viewing audience, our vast viewing audience, I want to make the point. I have never worked for a big monopoly, so I don't even know how to think like that.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Himself.
What year was that you were doing the open?
Oh gosh, Nick. Well, I mean,
in the late 90s.
Yeah.
I was in high school. That's where I was.
Thanks.
Way to make us feel old there, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's nice.